400 episodes. That's what we're celebrating today on Transit Unplugged. I'm Paul Comfort, host and producer of the show. And when we started this show now almost 10 years ago, I never had any idea it was going to grow to become what it has become, which is the #1 podcast in the world for transit leaders. And now, we've featured CEOs, agency heads, policymakers, private sector innovators from around the world documenting the ideas shaping the future of mobility. And today we celebrate that. We're going to do a 10-year retrospective on how public transportation and the podcast itself has evolved. The discussion between me and our producer, Chris O'Keefe, also showing some of the behind-the-scenes look at the show's expansion into on-location recordings, the television show, global industry coverage, and live events. We'll do a listener mailbag conversation with executive producer Julie Gates. We'll play a few clips from some of our favorite episodes of the past almost 10 years now. But we kick it off with an exclusive interview with Mark Miller. Mark is president of Constellation Software, and that is the parent company of Modaxo, the company that I work with. But he was there from the beginning. So I wanted to go back and talk to someone who was there at the beginning. He was part of the reason why this all got started almost 10 years ago when he was the co-founder and CEO of Trapeze Group. And he saw the vision and saw the value of promoting the industry, best practices and talking to leaders, not about software, but about the industry and what was working, what wasn't working, and do kind of a shared process where people could learn from each other in the industry. And so it's a great conversation where he talks about how we got started, what he sees the value of the show has been, and the impact it's had on the industry. Hopefully you'll be able to stay with us for the whole episode today. We kick it off with that. It's a great way. I want to end this opening by thanking you, our listeners, for making us so successful and sharing this podcast with those you work with. It's a great way where we can learn. Remember, in our industry, we don't compete with one another. We actually try to help each other because every transit agency serves their own region. And so we can learn from one another. And that's what I hope you'll do going forward if you haven't done that yet, is share this podcast with those you know that work in the industry who could benefit from some of the lessons learned from these leaders who really are talking to us unplugged, in that they are sharing with us not just the good things, but also the challenges and things that haven't worked the way they wanted them to. And they open up and are honest with us and talk about what they've learned from that and how we could do things better. It's a great way to share knowledge within the industry. And today we celebrate 400 episodes. We're in rarefied air. Less than 1% of podcasts ever make it to 400 episodes. And we're excited about the next 100 that are coming. Enjoy this great retrospective and look to the future on our 400th anniversary episode of Transit Unplugged. And thank you for being with us today and always. Super great to have with me my friend and somewhat of a mentor to me too, Mark Miller, who was the founder of Trapeze and is now CEO of Constellation Software, one of the largest software companies in the world. Hey, Mark, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, Paul, thanks for having me.
400 episodes in, one of the top, fraction, 1% of podcasts go that many. And it's because of your all support.
Yeah. And I wonder, Paul, how many miles you've flown to places around the world, right? How many words you've spoken, and how many leaders in the transit world you've listened to.
Yeah.
So many different countries and cities, and it's really amazing.
Thanks. I think at one time I calculated, but I have a feeling that I may have visited more transit systems around the world in their garages than anybody else.
Totally.
Yeah, so pretty exciting. But you were there from the beginning, and you were involved in starting it all. What are your memories of back then, and why did you all want to start a podcast? And what do you remember about the early days?
Like I'm involved, I was a co-founder actually of Trapeze and two other founders. And one of the things we did is we really believed in listening to our customers. And when we developed the software, our first product, I remember we developed it talking to schedulers, because they were the first users of our system. And I think one of the concerns you get as any business gets bigger, as any business grows, is you get further and further away from your customers and you actually start taking things for granted. So your ability to listen to them, help them, and give them some ideas as well made it all seem to make sense. But I guess I never would have assumed it would have been so successful, Paul. And that's a credit to you. I never would have imagined. We had thought initially about it just doing North America, like it's a big enough place.
Yeah.
And then you went global with it. And it wasn't like we said, here, Paul, go global. You actually made it go global. You pushed to do that and made it great. Anyways, I think that's sort of how I remember it, and maybe
Yeah.
that's like evolution of it. But that's how I remember it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. And I think that's exactly what happened. Yeah, it's been a ball. I'm a people person, as you know. And
Yeah,
so I love connecting with them. And since I was CEO of a transit system, I can
yeah,
relate to these
that
guys and gals
that made it
in a real way. But it's almost become like a family of people that try to help each
right.
other. We do this annual event
Yeah,
now. We've got one coming up at the end of this month called the Think Transit
yeah,
Executive Summit. When you were
yeah,
back at Trapeze, you set up this annual conference
yeah,
called Think Transit, and it's become more than a
yeah,
users conference. Now we'll have 60
yeah,
leaders, CEOs, COOs, all in a room under Chatham House rules, and they're all
yeah.
talking to each
Well,
other about the hot topics, safety, security, all that stuff.
yeah.
What do you think of that? How do you think this kind of conversation has helped the industry?
I think it's good. Well, first of all, I think just to underline the thing you said, like if you hadn't run a transit agency, you wouldn't have been as successful as you are at this. I think that's really, really important because you're you have instant credibility because you've done it. You can talk to them as a peer, not just as someone who, wants information or has ideas. You talk to them as a peer because you've shared their pain, and I think that helps, and that creates a platform for you be able to bring people together and communicate. So I think it's making a big difference. I remember the first time I went to see you speak, Paul. That was an event. I was probably at an APTA conference somewhere in the US. It's hard to remember what city it was. And I remember like you got there before you were speaking and you went and you shook the hand of pretty much everybody in the first row and introduced yourself. And you say you're a people person, but that to me is something I'll never forget. And it's something actually I even try to do now when we're at one of our events, try to go around. I did that at the last quadrant. So when I shook everybody in the first row's hand. And that's something I actually picked up from you, Paul. And I think it just makes the audience feel that, they're actually they're there with you, not just to listen to you. And I think that just creates lines of communication. Plus, your ability now to span the globe with this, what you called it a family. Um, People have different challenges around the world, depending on what city they're in. Some are more privatized, some are more government run, agencies, and some have different modes of transit going on inside of their organization. Your ability to let them learn about new things they're trying to do before they do them is pretty important.
Thank you. That's really good. And it's been the platform that your companies have allowed this to grow that way. So, like you said, now Modaxo, the company I started out
Yep.
with Trapeze, and then you created this. We had all these software companies around the world, and we said, why don't we put them all under one roof? People are doing with
Yeah.
people mobility. Now it's
Yeah.
aviation, parking, and transit,
Yeah.
everything. But it's this platform now.
Yeah.
And as you know, the hallmark of our show, and you and I talked about this early on, is that I don't sell anything. My job there
Right.
is not to sell our software. My job is to connect with them and promote these best practices. And I think that
Yeah.
also became a hallmark of why we're now the number one transit podcast in the world, because
I
people
agree.
know they can trust. I'm not there to sell anything. I'm just
I
there
agree.
to elevate you. Your thoughts on that?
You've created an environment where yourself as a leader brings leaders together. And I think everybody wants to learn. And I think if you're humble enough to learn, you're going to do better. And I bet you the people who are the closest family members in your community are those humble people who want to learn. Even sometimes they have to have a strong public persona to look strong and tough for for their board members and representing their agencies and have you. So I think you create a community that feels that sharing and learning is important. And I really wish that every leader I work with had those abilities because they tend to be, and it doesn't matter how many decades they've been working, Paul. It isn't like, you can never be wise enough. You need to always be learning and getting wiser. And I think I think you espouse that so in what you do with your podcast. So congratulations to you. I was honored that you'd asked me to speak to you actually. So
Thank you. Yeah, my dad taught me that, Mark. My dad was a minister, and
yeah,
one of his main quotes in my head has always been, "Paul, always be improving yourself. Always be improving yourself." And
yeah,
that's what we have to do. And I love the heart that you've instilled. The way if you're a real father of an organization or a child is, do they carry your heart? And our organization still carries your
yeah.
heart of humility, Mark.
Oh, thank
Leaders like Rod Jones and Bill, these guys, they exhibit humility. They're over multi-million-dollar organizations with
you. Yeah.
thousands of employees, but they still have your heart, which is phenomenal, man. So
Well, you've got that. I wonder your father had a major influence on you, Paul, because you've spoken about him a lot when you speak, and I think that's wonderful.
yeah,
And he had a big influence on how you are, and I'm sure you're that for your grandkids, right? You're going to be that calm center of, learning, wisdom, and humble ability. And wow, what a story! Like seeing all these places you've been to and all these people you've met. In a way, I'm jealous because I love the thought of getting out and having the ability to sit down and talk to these people, and they're proud people. They really do something that the thing that everybody forgets sometimes about this business of moving people is you're moving people. You're getting them from home to school. You're getting them to the doctors. You're getting them to work. You need to go visit their friends. It's amazing. I don't know. I think it's a great industry too, and
yeah,
they're actually having a massive impact on this planet and all of these cities. Just think if you could sum together of all the podcasts you've done, the number of people that are moved per day
yeah,
because of the leaders that you're bringing together, and they want it to be in a safe environment where they can feel that they're getting on, whether it's a bus or a train or a subway, and they're going to feel safe. And these things matter. These people really matter.
yeah.
And what they're doing is, I don't think they even get the credit they deserve for the difference they make. So you making them more successful and allowing them to tell their stories to each other and learn from each other. It's just pretty, it's a very special thing. So to do that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mark. I know you're a busy man. I appreciate you spending even these few minutes with us today. It's always great to connect with you. I want to extend my appreciation to you, how kind and generous you've been to me over the years. I remember early on, you must know my love language is words of affirmation, because you would call me every couple of months and just say, "Paul, you're doing amazing." And that would just
Yeah.
fill my heart up. I felt good for another
Uh,
three. You got me
uh,
going for 3 more months with that. So
well, Paul, we're the feeling is mutual. You've made a big difference to our organization, and again, beyond our organization, because our organization serves our customers and listens to our customers. So congratulations on what you've done. There's only one Paul Comfort out there, and we're so lucky that we connected, whether it was at the CN Tower over
yeah, yeah.
or whatever meal we had or what have you. But congratulations on what you've done, and I'll give you like a hand of applause for your efforts for the company, and thank you so much. And keep on rolling. There's another 400 at least to do,
There
so
you go,
let's keep
brother.
them going. That would be a Mark thing to say too. Don't
That's
just
right.
begun, Paul.
And by casting the vision, right? That's
Yeah,
good.
you gotta go. Let's go. Let's make another great 400, and maybe Mars will be another destination on the list at some point in
There
time.
you go.
Hopefully not in the near future, though.
Maybe the moon. I heard we're going
The
there
moon. Let's
first.
do the
Yeah.
moon. Yeah, we'll do transportation to the moon. Sure, someone will get that job at some point. I'm sure that'll be
Yeah.
of a transit agency, right? So,
That's great.
so
Thank you.
interstellar transit agency or something.
ITA. Hey, welcome back. This is our 400th episode of the Transit Unplugged podcast, and I'm excited to bring out on camera and behind the microphone someone who you may not have seen before or heard from, unless you watch the credits at the very end, and that's Chris O'Keefe. Chris came to us a little over a year ago. He is our producer and editor, and works from LA, and I'm completely on the other side of the country near Annapolis, Maryland. So we're bi-coastal guys, and he helps this thing sound and look great. So Chris, thanks for coming on screen with us today.
You're very welcome, Paul. As you know, it's tough to lure me out from behind the scenes, but today is a milestone. Today is your 400th episode, and so I'm here to celebrate it with you.
Thank you, man. And you've been a big part of it, especially for this last year. So today I want to spend some time talking with you about the industry a little bit, where we fit into the industry as a podcast and what we've got coming up. But you've got an amazing background. It's one of the reasons we were excited to have you come join us a little over a year ago. Tell us a little about your background in podcasting.
Yeah, so I've had a long and storied career in the industry at this point. I've been a company founder with Podcation, which does live podcast creation hackathon events. I helped launch Disgraceland, which became the #1 music podcast in the world. I have done another number of narrative shows besides that. I've helped places like MIT or British Columbia Institute of Technology or Royal Bank of Canada articulate their complex value propositions into clear, compelling, persuasive language. And that brought me to Transit, which is something I've always been incredibly passionate about. And so meeting you and the team has been a really transformative last year of my life.
Well, as I said, it's been awesome to have you, a true professional. And I think some of what you're going to help us develop in this next year is going to make our show even more compelling for our listeners. Let's talk about what 400 means. I was looking the other day online. You know, everything is its own industry. And podcasting is its own industry. It has its own conferences and e-newsletters and all that. And I was reading the e-newsletter and it was talking about how many shows get to 400. And it's not very many, is it?
It's not. In fact, you can look around. The everyone from Edelman to Podchaser, everyone has different sort of stats for it. But it really comes down to most shows don't get past a handful of episodes. You can find a lot of data that says it's a single digit percentage that gets to 10. Getting to 100 episodes, I think if you were to look across all the data, you're under 1%. And so getting to 400, you're really in rarefied air there. So you have a lot to be proud of for your tenacity. And I imagine in the early days, it wasn't as glamorous as it is now.
Yeah, I don't know if it's still as glamorous, but one of the reasons we're able to get to 400 is obviously the support of a company that supported this. I had already had a background in radio. I had 16 years doing my own radio show, Comfort's Corner, a talk show, and they asked me, "Would you like to start a podcast?" And I was like, "Sure." It's like, it's basically the new talk radio, what all of us grew up with, talk radio, and I knew exactly who I wanted to interview, which was CEOs of transit systems. And that's how we really started out. We went, our very first show was in Rochester, New York, and we interviewed the CEO there. And we basically have primarily focused on CEOs. But over the last year or so, Chris, we've expanded. And we're starting to bring in more people kind of into the portfolio. Like you and I just went to Washington, D.C. and did an event at TRB where we interviewed researchers and people to do that. So the show is expanding its reach. We're heard all over the world, and it's been exciting to have somebody like Modaxo and prior to that, Trap Beast sponsor the show without us ever really mentioning them. We're not here to sell software. Our goal is to do thought leadership content and connect with the C-suite of our industry and allow them to share best practices because we don't compete. That's the cool thing about transit. It's not like we're all hardware stores and we're competing against each other in the same city. We are, independent agencies and government agencies, quasi-governmental agencies in cities all over the world helping each other and with our goal to improve mobility. And I think, you and I had that moment when we were in Washington, D.C. a couple of weeks ago where we recorded that, where I got very passionate at the end of that podcast just to remind everybody, all this research, all this technology, those are all great tools. Never let it, blind you to the fact that our ultimate goal is to serve our fellow human beings. And so that's what this podcast is ultimately about.
And through the power of production, we're going to go to that clip right now.
I want to close by talking about why we do what we do. So I've spent 38 years of my life working in public transportation and local government. I started out right out of college running a small bus system an hour from here on the eastern shore of Maryland, just over the Bay Bridge in Queen Anne's County. And I can tell you that every day for those first 7 years when I was working transporting elderly, people with disabilities, and then eventually we started a public transit system, every day I was in direct contact with our passengers. I rode the bus with them. I got a commercial driver's license so I could drive. I was only 22, all my drivers could have been my parents or grandparents and all the employees there, so I wanted to have their respect, and the way to do it was to be able to do what they do. But every day I went home with my heart feeling full. I felt warm inside because I knew the impact I was having on their lives, because I was actually involved with them on a day-to-day basis. And the further I moved up in the industry, I made sure that I wanted to stay connected with what we're really doing this for, which is our passengers. We're really here to serve them. We're not here about the trains, the type of trucks underneath of it, the AI, the software, the technology. Those are all great tools, but they're all tools in service of a greater good, which is the mobility of people, not only those who need it, but also those who want it, who want to have a positive impact on the environment, don't want to drive their own car, want to be on a ride in mass transit. The impact that we have, the 500,000 people in this country of America and the hundreds of thousands more around the world on the actual structure of how society works is kind of hard to fathom. If you were to pull transit out of a city for one day, think about how that city would operate. It wouldn't. We are the veins that transport the blood, the people that work in that city, the impact we have on an economic value, but in my life, even more importantly, on the people who use it. I spent a lot of my career working with people with disabilities. I feel like they deserve the very best we can give because they need it more than almost anyone. And without us, they may not have access to almost any of the opportunities that life offers them. They might be homebound and not be able to get out. So when you leave this place and all the research that's done, just keep in mind, like Stephen Covey said with one of the 7 habits of highly effective people, begin with the end in mind. Our end is to improve the lives of people through public mobility. And the work you do makes that happen every day, and you really do make a difference in people's lives. There's not a higher calling we can have than to serve people through what we're doing.
And when we were listening to that clip, Paul, when we were cutting the episode, both myself and our executive producer, Julie Gates, pointed out that, hey, maybe that's something that we should make its own thing. And so we're going to find ways to get that moment out there. I think you have a little bit of that in your upbringing, in your background. Your uncle was a pastor. Is that true?
And my dad, yeah. They both instilled in me kind of desire to serve people. I always, it's crazy, I know, but I always felt like I could do it through local government. And so all of my career has basically been either in local or state government in one fashion or another, even if I'm in the private sector as a contractor there. And I really am one of those guys that feels like I'm from the government and I'm here to help you. And I know it's kind of a joke to people, but I really think local government, especially, I've been a county commissioner, county administrator, as well as running local county government transit systems. That's where the rubber hits the road, literally, right? The roads are paved, the parks, the schools, everything, planning and zoning. And so we're in that ecosphere, but transit has a special place there because transit really moves people to all of those locations I just talked about, the schools, the parks, the shopping, all that stuff. We're the connective tissue that does that, and that's what this show talks about.
And speaking of movement, a challenge that we put to ourselves last year was let's get some places. Let's do, primarily this has been a remote recording capability, at least when I came aboard. Last year we went to Kansas City, we went to Boston, we went to DC at least a couple of times. What do you think the difference is between a Zoom recording or a Riverside recording, which, we're lucky if we can get it. We'd rather have the conversation than not. But actually being there with someone, sitting across the table with them, handing them a glass of water, what's the difference there?
Yeah, I think it is the connection and vulnerability you get when you're in person. A lot of us have, we've spent the pandemic and now years after that, long Zoom calls and all that kind of stuff and Teams calls. And our guests are usually very excited to be on the podcast. I just recorded one this morning with a guest who was just, super thrilled to be there, even though it's here. But when you're live and in person, you can shake hands, you can, go to lunch together or whatever. The really connective tissue, again, to use that terminology, is stronger there. And I think you get a better response. And it's more exciting. And I think you get the buzz. You can feel the buzz when you're listening to it because, like, for instance, we just recorded an episode with, the head of WTS, right, Bridget Beata. We did it in person at a table in the hallway at TRB at a private spot. And the connection you get and the hand movements, the gestures, the communication cues that you can pick up easier than you can when you're just talking to someone on screen. I think it's all there.
And I know that you're a believer in serendipity and energy, and there's been like a couple of moments where you've gotten on the right elevator, or you've gone, you've taken a left instead of a right, and you've met the person that you were trying to meet. Can you tell the listeners about a couple of those moments?
Sure, yeah. I think I've talked about this in some of my talk speeches I do at conferences around the country when you get a chance to be a little more philosophical. But yeah, I believe I'm in the river of life. And the way I know personally, the way I gauge whether or not I'm in the flow, in the zone, is timing. Timing doesn't, the timing of meeting someone at the right place at the right time, the exact person you wanted to talk to. I don't think that happens too often by coincidence. I think it happens by design. And so, yeah, there's been a number of occasions that have been life altering for me where I, walking out of a big room with thousands of people and I need to meet one guy. It's the end of the night. And like you said, I just feel drawn to walk out the door on the right. And I literally bump right into him. And we have the conversation we need to have. And my life was changed as a result of that. I ended up getting the position as county administrator in Charles County, Maryland, and moving my family and a whole new career and a whole new kind of, all because I went to the right place at the right time. And to be honest with you, Chris, that's how I get a lot of the guests on the show. It is, I'm talking with someone at a conference and I'm like, something clicks in me and they say, they have a story to tell. Or for instance, I was recently talking with the head of MV Transportation, Harry Wilson, who was one of the guys that did the turnaround at General Motors for the federal government. And we were talking by phone because I forget why, but we were talking and I told him, hey, I'm working on a book called Find Your X Factor. And I told him what it's about. It's about the intersection of your interests and abilities. And, because he asked me what I was working on. And he said, Paul, I just talked to my daughter this morning about that exact concept of she needs to find something for her career where I hope he won't mind me saying the story, but where the interests and abilities intersect. And I said, dude, you got to be in the book. You got to give us a story about that. And so he became one of the 7 vignettes in the book. So that kind of shows you how the flow works for me. And I get a lot of guests that way. Someone may leave a comment on one of my LinkedIn posts. We have a lot of people that I'm connected with, like almost, 27,000 people. So every day I'm engaging with lots of people and somebody might say something and I'll be like, that's interesting. Let me look at their background. Oh, they're this, or, they're a director of planning at a transit agency, in Iowa. And I want to talk to them and find out more about them. And that could turn into them being a guest. We have so many platforms now, Chris, that we have available to us. Not just the podcast, but the TV show, live events, blog posts, books, magazine articles, all the stuff I'm working on to create content. And so the way I create that content is through connection with other people. And I want to make them shine and have their best ideas shine. And that's what really we're doing.
I want to get to the book in a second, but I want to go back to the idea of the river of life first. We talked about some of the places that we traveled to last year and that sense of serendipity, which as a producer, hey, it's really convenient for me to do remote recordings, but you don't have that same opportunity to get on the right elevator or to take the left instead of the right that you do when you're in person. Next year, we're going to be in places like Boston. We're going to be in Chicago. I know you've got a full schedule. What places are you headed to that you're excited about, or any places that you've never been before?
Yeah, well, the one that sticks out to me right now that I'm excited about being at, and it's happening the month that people are listening to this, is I'll be going to San Antonio, Texas, and filming with Via Transportation. San Antonio, Nashville and San Antonio are 2 of my very favorite cities in the country for, a lot of the obvious reasons, right? San Antonio has, the Riverwalk. It has the Alamo. My dad was stationed there when he was in the Air Force in Korea and the Korean War. And, he worked there. And so I have family connections. I went and found the place where he worked in my last visit there. And the history that's there, it's also one of the gastronomical, big cities in the country that people maybe aren't aware of. So we're excited about filming an episode of our TV show there. We also then normally will have a podcast that comes out of that. So that's a big one. And I think another one that I'm excited about a little bit later in April we'll be going to is the Rocky Mountaineer. Rocky Mountaineer is an excursion train. And it's it's one of the wonders of transportation in North America. We've ridden both their line in Canada and the one here. And we filmed a television show on the one in Canada that's won many, many awards. That episode has very cinematic. And we're going to film another episode there and talk to them about, Transportation, basically for transportation's sake, enjoying the ride, looking out the window, slowing down. Wi-Fi doesn't work. They don't have connections on the train for a reason. They want you to enjoy the journey. The trip is about the journey. And so that's a whole nother side of transportation that, we're always like, oh, commuters are going into work. We were just in Boston. We're filming the MBTA. Keolis runs their commuter trains. People are getting to work. It's a rush. And Ryan Colahan, the COO there, drives the train sometimes himself and all this interesting stuff. But people are always on the go, go, go. And then you have times when you slow down, like you did this last summer, Chris, when you did a car-free summer in Boston, or on this train ride, where it's more about the journey even than it is the destination.
I'd like to move on to the book now. Can you show what you just showed me?
Yeah. So just today, as we're recording this, I put the final touches on my book, Find Your X Factor. I finalized the back cover. I'm showing on video now if you can see it. That's the front cover. That's the back cover. This has been basically a 9-month journey to write this book and now to get it published. It's the first time I've had a book agent to help me develop the book and then pitch it to multiple publishers, major publishers. So thankful to Morgan James, one of America's top book publishers, for believing in the vision. I just was recently with them in Orlando at a big event and got to walk across the stage of the red carpet and shake the publisher's hand, David Hancock, and announce the book that is going to come out this year on August 11th. That's when it'll be published. And I have a website, findyourxfactor.ai, where I've developed kind of an assessment where you can do an assessment on your own and see, hey, is this my X Factor? And what is it? And what can I do? So, yeah, I'm excited about the concept. It's something I've talked about for years. And it's basically this, and that is, if you want to have real success, be happy, and find your purpose in life, which I think most of us do, I believe there's a way to do it. And it's not about having to blow up your life and start over again. It's about uncovering the clues that you already have in your life, taking some time to analyze what are my strengths, what are my passions, what are my interests, what energizes me. And then you think about all the things in your life that you're like, for me, it's been public communication, right? As I go back and look at my life, every job I've been in, I've always tried to, work toward either teaching a class or putting out a newsletter or starting a radio station or, whatever, something public communication wise. And then intersect that with what you're good at or what you're capable of getting good at. For me, really, the thing I'm best at is public transportation and local government. That's where I spent 38 years of my career. So when you intersect those, you wake up every morning, like Thomas Edison said. He said, I never worked a day in my life. I loved what I did, and so it didn't feel like work. And that's the way it feels for people who are operating in their X Factor, and the book helps you figure that out. Unfortunately, too many people are just working for the paycheck, or they work for the weekend. They try to get their money on their main job so they can have fun on the weekend. So this is about figuring out a way to integrate that. So yeah, the book comes out August 11th. We'll be giving away copies of it at our Think Transit Executive Summit, which comes up at the end of this month on March 30th in Boston. Back to Boston again. It's been a cornerstone of what's been going on this year. We'll hopefully have 60 or more CEOs there, and they're going to be the very first ones I give a copy of this book to. And I want them to have it help improve their lives so they can bring into their fullest capacity what they do for their work and serving people. And that's the idea behind the book. How to become more fully yourself, be more fully alive, be self-actualized, to use Maslow's terms. And so anyway, yeah, that's the game plan. And people can pre-order now at Barnes & Noble. If we get 300 copies sold at 300 different addresses around the world, what they tell me is, publisher says, Barnes & Noble will then most likely stock it in their bricks and mortar bookstores, which will mean the message gets out to more people. And that's what I want.
You used to actually manage one of the largest transit systems in the country, and you've been on the inside as an operator and as an administrator. And now you've got this other job that you work very hard at as a transit evangelist. And it kind of reminds me of like when you see, a Super Bowl winning coach go into broadcasting and they're like, is this hard work? It's like, yeah, well, it's hard work, but it's not the same kind of toll daily 24/7, kind of putting out fires and whatnot. Can you talk about the comparison between being the head, being the top guy at a major transit agency and doing what you're doing now?
Sure. Yeah, it is very different. And it's part of the reason why I do the podcast. And when Mark Miller and all the guys at Trapeze asked me that question many years ago, what do you want to do if you come work for us? And I said, I know exactly what I want to do. I want to write, I want to speak, I want to travel, and I want to help my fellow CEOs improve their transit systems. That was my exact quote. And I'm still able to do that 8 years later as a company that has great integrity. They've let me do that. The difference is, and I knew coming from it, like you said, it is a soul-sucking job. It drains everything out of you, but it's also an amazing job where you're able to use every facet of your capacities. If you're a technical guy, you can use it there. And if you're not a technical guy or a gal, you're going to have to become some technical, because you're going to have to review procurements when it comes to your software, when it comes to your new vehicles, your new hydrogen vehicles. There's so much technical stuff there. And then you've got, all the politics of it. I often say that being the CEO of one of the top 50 transit systems in the country is kind of like being a mayor. You've got a city council you've got to work with. You've got the public. You've got the internal staff you're working with. So the CEOs are in, high pressure situations. I remember my wife, I'd be laying in bed, at 11 or 12 at night, texting on my phone. She'd say, Paul, put the phone down. I'm like, I can't. I've got to get back to them. There's, we've got water coming in the subway station here, and they're looking to me for a decision right now about what to do, or whatever. There's 100 things. And basically, this is the life of a CEO. I can tell you, because it was my life. You drive in the morning. For me, I had an hour drive. On the phone, I would call all my direct reports and say, and I wouldn't necessarily get through all of them because I had a bunch of them, but what's going on today? What's the game plan? Blah, blah, blah. Then you get in and it's meeting all day long till around 6 at night. And oftentimes you have night meetings at least once or twice a week. Then your administrative assistant brings in a big stack of mail and stuff you have to review and sign and approve. And some of them are big, long documents that need action, almost immediately. And then when are you going to do your emails? Because you get 100, 200, 300 emails a day. And when are you going to return all your phone calls? Well, oftentimes I return all my phone calls on the drive home, and I do my emails after dinner. It's the only time I do it. And so the average CEO is working 14, 15, 16-hour days, nonstop. It doesn't stop on the weekends. And so it is and oftentimes it's a thankless job because, they get so much hate thrown at them. You try to change bus routes in a city, and you'll feel the wrath of thousands of people. You're trying to make it more efficient, but all they know is you're moving this route from in front of my grandmom's house, and she needs that. And so there is, it's a lot of stuff for them. And so the podcast is a way, and like the executive summit we have coming up in Boston, are ways for them to relate to each other, to talk about what works best, what doesn't, and to share best practice and be vulnerable. Most CEOs, when I finish interviewing them, they tell me, and most people I interview in general say at the end, that was so easy. The person I interviewed today said that to me. She said, Paul, that was so easy. I was like, that's great. That's the mark of a good conversation on the podcast. You didn't feel like you were under pressure. It's just having a conversation between two leaders, and we're just taping it. So that's the goal of the podcast, is to be more conversational and less interviewee, like you get. And I want people to be real, which is why I asked them about their personal life. Tell us about your personal life, what music you listen to, what books have you read lately, where do you like to travel for vacation? I want people to get to know them a little bit. So all that personal side, when we have time for it, especially when we have live events, we do that, helps people understand and relate to our leaders. And I want them to be relatable and respected.
Yeah, that concept of non-crisis comms really drew me to the project. These folks are usually only getting a microphone stuck in their face when something goes really, really wrong, and just getting to know people. And just the general spirit of optimism and positivity that this project brings to things. Obviously, there are hurdles, there are problems, but we're finding all these different yeses through these conversations and these possibilities. And I find it very energizing. Congratulations on 400 episodes, Paul. Hopefully we get to do 400 more. Hopefully I get to be a part of this for quite some time. Thank you for having me aboard.
Thank you. It's been my honor, and I thank Modaxo and all the leadership for allowing me to do this, to really live my passion and to help our industry. And Chris, I appreciate the partnership with you in making it happen.
All right. Thanks, Paul.
Well, we're rolling along now in our 400th episode, Julie, of the podcast, and it's time to go to the mailbag. And so Julie Gates, our executive producer, is here with me to go into the mailbag and give us some questions.
Yes. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions through info@transitunplugged.com and on our LinkedIn page. So, Paul, 400 episodes in, people want to ask you questions now. Are you ready?
All right. Well, I'm ready, I guess.
We'll start with my favorite question. What was your favorite meal while on the road? Because you are basically a road warrior in your job.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've had some amazing meals at places all over the world, from Singapore to Brazil. Paella in Barcelona was probably my favorite overall. It was the whole scene where, we were on the beach and all that stuff, and it was made right out there. A close second kind of iconic moment was recently when we were in Rome at a street side cafe. We had carbonara, and it was just fantastic. Yeah.
Oh,
So those are two good recent ones.
those are amazing. I love that they were exotic too. That's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
paella in Barcelona, does it get any better than that?
I
I don't think
know.
so.
I know. It doesn't really. I think
Oh,
Barcelona is my new favorite global city.
yeah, I know. A lot of people tell me that. I haven't been yet, so I'll put it
Yeah.
on my bucket list. All right. What was your favorite podcast episode that you recorded of Transit Unplugged?
It's over 400 episodes. It goes back 9 years now. It's hard to remember every single one. Some of them were done in person. A lot of them, especially during the pandemic, were done virtually. But lately, my favorite one was, and I'm being honest about it, it was just last week. And that
Oh,
was with
yeah.
Geisha Esther, who's the executive director of NTI. I sent you all a note after we
You
recorded.
did.
I said, I think this is the perfect episode. I mean, she covered amazing things that this group does, NTI, National Transit Institute. And then that was the first half of the show. And then the back third was basically her career story, which was fantastic for people. A lot of our listeners, as you know, are people kind of in the middle of their career and they want to move up. She kind of gave a great glide path and how she did that in her career. So anyway, I would have to say my most favorite recent episode in recent memory is with Geisha. She's fantastic.
Yeah, and inspiring, how she moved her way up through the system and has worked all the roles. She's
Yes.
an inspiration to all of us.
Yeah. And
Okay.
very prepared as a guest. Very
Yes.
prepared, no ums and ahs, just the kind of the general thing you think about, and a great communicator with a great story.
Hmm. She's the full package. Question 3 of 4.
Okay.
What is your favorite podcast to listen to outside of Transit Unplugged or Modaxo podcasts?
Gotcha. Well, I'm a big Survivor fan, Julie. And I
Oh,
know
yeah.
you knew
Yeah.
Jeff Probst from back in the day and all that. But so
Yeah.
I've watched the 50th season is starting right now as we're recording this. It's starting tomorrow night, the 50th season of Survivor. And so I've been I've viewed every episode of Survivor on TV, all 50 seasons. And I started listening to the podcast a few years ago when it first got started. It's great, for the producer and me, that
Yeah.
produces the podcast and TV show. It gives the producer's perspective on a TV show. Jeff Probst
Yeah.
is the producer. And so it also gives a fan perspective, And so anyway, it's a great all around show. Even if you didn't really watch Survivor as a fan, it helps break you down how they do everything behind the scenes. And I love it. So I would say I have a lot of favorite podcasts, but that's probably my favorite one.
The fun fact for today's show is Jeff Probst and I went to the same high school.
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah. All right. Final question of this installment of the mailbag. Which city has great transit that people might not expect?
Very good. So I get this question a lot, or a similar version of it, like, what's your favorite, transit system? And so I would say, in Canada, it's TransLink for me. Kevin Quinn, he has the best transit system, I think, in Canada, major system. In America, my favorite system is WMATA, Washington Metro, in our nation's capital. Randy Clark, the work they've done, it's fantastic how they've turned that system. But the most kind of probably underrated one that I've been to in the last few years is Tucson. Tucson, Arizona. It is just a fantastic transit system. Their light rail system, Julie, there has had, amazing impact on the city with transit-oriented development, et cetera. And I love the transit system there. And that show, us making the episode of Transit Unplugged TV and the podcast we did with the CEO, were some of my favorite filming experiences in a long time.
Yeah, that was a special episode. I believe they were celebrating their 50th year.
That's right.
It was a big deal.
It's
Yeah.
a great transit system too. And the city supports it. They invest in it. It's a great system.
Well, congratulations on 400 episodes. It's been a complete joy to work with you for the last 4 years. That's how I've been able to work with you behind the scenes. You're an amazing host, an excellent producer. I love the show personally. So congratulations. May you have 400 more.
Amen to that, sister.
All right. If you, viewing or listening, have a question for the mailbag, we would love to hear from you for future episodes of the Transit Unplugged podcast. You can either send it by email at info@transitunplugged.com, or you can just send us a message on our LinkedIn page. Thank you for listening to this episode of Transit Unplugged, the world's #1 transit executive podcast. I'm Julie Gates, executive producer of the podcast. Many thanks to the team that makes this show happen. Host and producer Paul Comfort. Producer Chris O'Keefe. Editor Patrick Emile. Associate producer Cindy Raskin. Transit Unplugged is being brought to you by Midaxo, passionate about moving the world's people. If you would enjoy behind-the-scenes insights and updates from the show, sign up for our weekly newsletter, which has links to can't-miss conversations with the biggest names in mobility. Head to transitunplugged.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Transit Unplugged.